We're going to transition to our next panel at this point. It's the Wildfire Prevention and Recovery panel. Cal OES, on your program, it was Ryan Burris who was supposed to be here, but Robert apparently is pinch hitting for him at this point, as Ryan is not available. But the Robert Troy from Cal OES, Sina Tate from Cal Fire, and Bob Stiens, of course, from Edison, are on this panel. So we're going to start with you, Robert, if you don't mind. Thank you and welcome.
Hey, thank you. Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Frank. Appreciate the opportunity to meet with you all today. As Frank mentioned, I am pinch hitting for Deputy Director Ryan Burris. My name is Robert Troy. I'm an Assistant Director for Interagency Recovery Coordination here at the California Office of Emergency Services. So pleasure to meet with you all. As far as the first topic we wanted to touch upon, the question is how to obtain state and federal assistance following the recent severe winter storms and other disasters as well. So when it comes to the current disaster that we're up to our eyeballs in for recovery on, the winter storms, there is a FEMA website you can go to where you can see the counties that have been approved as part of this presidentially declared major disaster declaration. There's a few different FEMA programs, and I don't want to get too wonky on this, but for units of local government, so cities or counties or special districts, the primary program for assistance is called the Public Assistance Program. And the good news is when it comes to public assistance, that 51 of our counties in California were declared, right? So basically, it's easier for me to say what counties we do not have included in this disaster rather than who is in. And so every county other than Imperial, Kern, Lassen, Modoc, Plumas, Shasta, and Sierra is included for public assistance. So the good news there is then you can confirm on the website and the link that I'll drop into the chat here momentarily whether or not your county is a declared county within the disaster, right? And then if you are within a county and you do have damages that you received as part of the storms, as part of your special district, you contact your local county emergency services department agency, and we can help to make those connections if you don't have them. But then you create an account on FEMA's grants portal and submit a request for public assistance. And there is a timeliness factor there. On 30 days of the county being included in the disaster declaration, we did seek an extension request, but time is of the essence there. So we would encourage you to do that quickly. Also on the state side, we do have an equivalent state funding program under the California Disaster Assistance Act, which also allows us to provide additional funding to eligible units of local government and special districts for eligible costs incurred as part of a declared disaster. So whether it's physical damages to facilities or infrastructure, or incremental costs such as overtime related to the event, et cetera. So I will drop the links in there so you can go back and refer to that. Time is of the essence, so you'll want to engage with your county emergency management and with our state staff and work quickly to provide relevant information, but we can help you walk through that process every step of the way. The next step after that would be to attend an applicant's briefing for a high-level overview of the program's eligibility criteria. So those applicant briefings are well underway right now for our 51 counties, and we can help get you connected if you are in one of those counties and you feel that you do have eligible costs. Anytime you want, you can go and research on the FEMA site what disasters have been declared by year in any of the states or territories within the US, right? And so, of course, you could filter for California in 2023 and then get the current disaster. But I went ahead and also included a URL that goes back specifically to this disaster of the current or the recent storms and flooding here in California that are declared. The third and fourth links that I dropped in there are related to the first one is our state website, where you can see a listing of all emergency proclamations by the governor. So a state proclamation of a disaster, right? And so sometimes those are limited to just waivers of different types of authorities or requirements, and other times that authorizes funding as well. Each of those is a bit different, but I've linked to the website where you can go and take a look at that as well. And I will drop my contact information into the chat as well at the conclusion here today, so that if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to try and follow up with you. The second topic that I wanted to touch upon was the importance, benefits, and process of establishing a local hazard mitigation plan. So the fourth link that I dropped in there is a link to the Cal OES hazard mitigation website where you can go and get additional information. I'm just going to touch on some high-level programs and issues, but everything, all the additional detail that you would want is there on that webpage, as well as a link to sign up for notifications from our hazard mitigation team here at Cal OES, as well as places where you can submit notices of interest for some of these funding opportunities that you might be eligible for, right? So, but to start with, the most fundamental document in planning process in the world of mitigation is a local hazard mitigation plan, right? So counties write those, cities write those, and special districts are encouraged to participate in that process as well and be part of that local hazard mitigation plan, right? And so that can be everything from school districts to water districts, et cetera, right? But what a local hazard mitigation plan is a long-term planning document that brings together the necessary stakeholders to really assess threats and impacts to all types of infrastructure or human interest within a local county. And there's just as much value derived from the process of it as there is from the plan itself. Yes, the plan itself is something that you could refer back to and is helpful to you, but it's really that engagement with your local and regional stakeholders to really have those robust conversations and share the necessary data to help write effective hazard mitigation plans where the real benefit is. And then, of course, it does make you eligible for different types of state and federal hazard mitigation funds if you are part of an approved plan. So it's an effort that requires both internal and external stakeholders, and your local county should be able to provide you, information on that. There again, if you need some assistance in connecting with those folks, we're happy to make those connections, right? And so, additionally, one of the key benefits is identifying where you don't have specific capabilities to respond to disaster. So the fundamental recognition that you lack that is key, right? And then it helps you plan a process to fill those capabilities and create an action to increase your capabilities, both in a current funding cycle, if it's something that can be solved with additional funding or personnel, but also to be eligible for have greater opportunities to reduce those vulnerabilities in the future. So whether it's blue skies mitigation opportunities or to leverage funding that sometimes comes with declared disasters, that process will help guide you through both of that. So those documents not only grant eligibility to apply for mitigation projects that reduce your community's vulnerabilities, but also creates a strong risk assessment to support other planning requirements as well. So we also urge you to actively participate in your local county emergency operations plan process that all counties have in place. The more that they engage in a whole community effort for that, the better, the more effective that plan will be. There's also county general plans and community wildfire protection plans. Specific to general plans within counties, there's also an opportunity where if you work with your county stakeholders and you align the safety element of your general plan with your local hazard mitigation plan so that one references the other appropriately, that there's an opportunity for increased funding opportunities post-disaster as well. So generally speaking, under state funding, we can reimburse at a 75-25 rate, so 75% government and 25% local cost share. But if you are what's called AB 2140 compliant, and part of that, there are opportunities to potentially increase that cost share to reduce the amount of funding that comes out of your pocket. So our goal is really to incentivize eligible applicants to take an active part in that process and to help buy down risk for the future. Currently in California, we have 780 jurisdictions, including counties, cities, and special districts that have active FEMA-approved hazard mitigation plans that grant them access to programs such as BRIC, which is the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities program, and the Flood Mitigation Assistance program as well. These are national programs that have over $2 billion available nationally to fund mitigation projects. And we'll touch a little bit more about some other opportunities in a bit too. I do want to mention topic number 3, mutual aid. Just for awareness, the state of California has a very robust mutual aid system. So that's both on the fire side, on the law enforcement side. We certainly encourage public works as well. But in particular, part of our mission at OES is to we have a California fire and rescue mutual aid system. And the purpose of that is to provide for systematic mobilization, organization, and operation of necessary fire and rescue resources for the state and its political subdivisions to help reduce the impacts of disasters when they happen, right? So part of that is expedient mobilization and response. But it's really based on a fundamental recognition that no community has sufficient resources to cope with large-scale disasters that occur here in California. It really takes an acknowledgement on all levels of government that none of us can do that alone. But through mutual aid, we can come close to meeting those needs, right? It's a really robust program on the fire side, but we're eager to expand outside of that as well. Within that mutual aid system, Cal OES does have a fire fleet division, which provides local fire departments apparatus to maintain surge capacity during major emergencies, and we can pre-position those. This includes 114 Type 1 fire engines, 67 Type 3 engines, 79 Type 6 engines, and 12 water tenders. They're strategically stationed across California and staffed with local government firefighters so they can be deployed quickly. We've also are trying to expand our use of technology and data to support those efforts, right? So the data helps us to inform where we pre-position assets, where we invest our resources. But we're also engaging in a couple other technology initiatives. A couple of the most recent ones are the state of California's Wildfire Forecast and Threat Intelligence Integration Center, which we call the WIFTIC, right? And the way to think about that is it's really California's equivalent of the National Hurricane Center, right? Where we bring together all the relevant stakeholders, share data, assess threats jointly, and disseminate that information appropriately amongst all stakeholders, but focusing on fire threat, right? So when we start with monitoring drought conditions and pre-existing conditions and adjust that accordingly. But then, of course, we marry that up with current weather forecast and where we expect the most extreme fire weather behavior to exist, and then to share that information and pre-position resources accordingly. And the WIFTIC is composed of representatives from Cal OES, Cal Fire, and you're going to hear from Cal Fire shortly, the California National Guard, the California Public Utilities Commission, and other representatives from other federal and state and local agencies as well. We utilize information and share information with consumers on a daily basis. We've even used it for development of strategic prepositioning during Hurricane K, which we don't generally think about hurricane threat in California, but we'll pivot and adjust those resources to support whatever that threat is. Another recent development for technology we've been using in California is called FIRES, which is the Fire Integrated Real-Time Intelligence System. And it's a system that provides dynamic real-time intelligence during both initial response to all hazards incidents and also increased or enhanced situational awareness post-event as well. So we have two different aircraft with military-grade sensors providing event modeling and prediction, intelligence collection, data fusion, data sharing, infused intelligence results to help decision makers make informed decisions that are driven by data, right? So I'm going to move on to the next topic, which is other funding and grant opportunities for local agencies to build resilience, right? So resilience means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Certainly, there are specific applications within your worlds as well. But in short, I guess most immediately, if you had a facility that was damaged as part of the most recent presidentially declared disaster or other ones as well, there are opportunities to strengthen or harden those facilities as part of the repair and reconstruction through both FEMA and Cal OES CDAA funding, right? So we refer to that as Section 406 mitigation, where we help jurisdictions rebuild after a disaster, but also to provide additional funding, which they can apply to that particular project to make it more resilient for future events. We want to always build back smarter and better, and not just have to pay for that damage to occur the next time around, the next time we have a similar disaster. So Cal OES releases a variety of funding opportunities for mitigation projects every year, often with hundreds of millions of dollars available. It's a good problem that we have in California because of our high rate of disasters. We also get a high level of mitigation funding that comes with that. It's not easy to navigate. It's not easy to implement. It takes a partnership. We're here and dedicated to providing that. In the past 5 years, Cal OES has invested nearly $2 billion statewide, primarily for flooding, fires, and earthquakes, but also more recently for projects that address heat and drought risk as well. So everything from urban greening and groundwater recharge, and also to help produce local hazard mitigation plans. Federal programs I mentioned earlier was the BRIC program, but we also have hazard mitigation grant program, which comes on after a disaster, but we also have in specific HMGP post-fire programs as well. The easiest way to get in tune with that is to utilize that link that I shared in there to the hazard mitigation website for Cal OES, which is part of the Recovery Directorate. And like I said, you can find information on this and sign up for future distributions as well. Since 2021, 3 programs we focused on with state funding are designed to really help local jurisdictions fill the gaps. We know that there are a lot of challenges in mitigation, and one of them is funding gaps for local cost shares, for local capacity, staff capacity, et cetera. So the first one is called the Jump Start program, where we dedicated $15 million to hire chief resiliency officers for a term of 5 years, right? We always hear and we understand, and it's absolutely the case, that local communities don't have somebody whose sole job is to build resiliency, right? We're trying to help jumpstart that, literally and figuratively, right? So we've expended $15 million on that, and we hope to have additional funding for that program as well in the future. We also have something called the Prepare California, which is a match program, where we've utilized $85 million of state funds to cover the non-federal cost share for high-impact projects to protect communities from climate change, right? We know that 25% cost share is a challenge for a lot of communities, and so we're dedicated to helping to fill that challenge, right? And then lastly, there's the California Wildfire Mitigation Program. And that's a program we've just stood up this past year. We're really into the demonstration phase of it, where we've dedicated $34 million for residential home hardening programs and establishing defensible space in socially vulnerable communities, right? So we believe in equity in California. So we factor in both the threat and impacts from natural disasters, but we also take a look at what are the vulnerability characteristics for a particular community so that we can apply that assistance where it's needed the most. You can find out more of that on that website that I mentioned as well. And there will be future funding opportunities for that. We also provide enhanced technical assistance to assist communities in accessing this funding as well, because we recognize that it is complex. It is challenging to navigate some of the grant application requirements for these programs. Topic number 5 is how to secure any available funding for electricity resilience, such as diesel generators, to run or support the essential operations of local services providers in light of growing frequency and duration of power outages and the push to move more and more vehicles and equipment to electric power. So Cal OES strongly encourages projects under our hazard mitigation assistance program that will bolster energy resilience. Those are the types of projects that are well matched to that particular program. So examples that would be solar microgrids, vegetation management around utility lines, undergrounding of utilities, utility hardening, et cetera. And that information can be found on the mitigation website. Eligible applicants can apply for funding for emergency backup generators via the hazard mitigation grant program. So that's a post-disaster program. So if you had facilities, for example, that were damaged under the recent storms or other events, that you could apply for that HMG funding to build back that facility better, potentially through an emergency backup generator. We do have to prioritize root cause mitigation activities as the primary prioritization, but we can also look at generators as a secondary. So, and then lastly, there are resources for wildfire survivors and state recovery resources. That's pretty complex for individuals and households. I'm going to drop a link into our page to our individual assistance program where you can look into that, how families and individuals in your communities can get assistance post-disaster. I also have information on how local businesses and households can get assistance from the Small Business Administration as well as long-term recovery groups, which are really how voluntary agencies come together in your community. So I'm going to wrap up there and turn it over to see if there's any questions, but then to the 2 other speakers on the panel. Thanks for your time. And like I said, I'll drop in a couple more links.
Thank you, Robert. Sina?
Hi, I'm Sina Tate with Cal Fire. I am an analyst and I work for the Wildfire Prevention Grants Program. I do have a presentation that I am about to share what I'm about to do, I'm going to be providing just an overview of our grants programs, qualifications, applicant information, and how to apply. So if anything that you guys need in terms of like the scope and the details of how to put your application in, I'll share that at the end with information to our resources. But for now, we're going to talk about the overview. So our program has come a long way. It started back in 2014. It really started with about $5 million in funding that have evolved to now about $115 million in one pool. Funding comes from general funds and California Investments Fund. When you put in your application, don't worry about which funding you want to specify. When you are awarded, that's when we'll clarify and specify which funding you're getting from. Our program is also designed to benefit low-income and disadvantaged communities and for the protection of people, structures, and communities. Some of the activity types that we fund for is hazardous fuels reduction, wildfire prevention planning, and also wildfire prevention education. So there's 3 categories that you can put your application in for. Some of our eligible applicants are state and federal agencies, Native American tribes, local government and special districts, Joint Powers Authority, nonprofits with a 501c3. Just to specify, only 501c3 can qualify for this. 501c6 do not qualify for our program. Based on what I've heard, looks like you guys are very familiar with special districts and local governments, but for those who don't know, some examples are cities, county, fire protection districts, community service districts, water districts, resource conservation districts, just to name a few. So this year, we actually took a different approach. For the last several years, we've been doing paper application, which, as you can imagine, it's very tedious for not only the applicants to put in their application, but also for the reviewers to go through paper applications. So we've actually started this year, we launched our grants portal, which is our electronic application process. So we're very excited about that. And so far, knock on wood, it's been going very, very well. We haven't ran into any major problems that we cannot solve. There will be a solicitation link and grants portal user on our website, which I will put in the chat in just a bit. And our application process have started. We launched it on December the 14th of 2022. And it will close on March 15, 2023. I want to stress this part a little bit. I know a lot of times we wait until the last minute to put in the application, but because we're switching over to our electronic system, we do have a hard deadline of March 15, 2023. There's going to be a lot of information that are required. So I do encourage you to start your application now. And then if you have any problems or issues or questions, we will work with you one-on-one to make sure that you have a completed application to be submitted by March 15th of 2023. So our project completion date, once you are awarded, and we are expecting to award our 2023 funding in fall of 2023, but all projects are to be completed by March 15th, 2029. So you have about 6 years to complete your projects. Just a little bit about our application package, what it consists of, what is required. Scope of work, of course, is needed. Basically, what I would tell you is the more details you can provide of what you are to do or what you're looking to do, the better your application will look. And budget as well. Make sure you break down everything that you need. Nothing is too small for you to include in the budget sheet so that we know how much money to give you. And then we are now, if you have multiple files to upload, we have made it very easy to upload through our grants portal system as well. And then, of course, the project mapping program, and that's just a polygon of your area that you are proposing in your application. I'm only going to talk briefly about CEQA. Again, any details it could be discussed offline because it can get pretty tedious. But just to remind you that groundwork cannot be done until CEQA is approved. CEQA process can take a while, so I encourage you, once you are awarded, to put in your CEQA requirements right away. The great news is that we do cover CEQA costs, just to make sure, make sure that you put that into our application process, that when reviewing, we would know what portion of it goes to CEQA. And then, of course, coordinate with your unit forester for CEQA details or any information that you need on CEQA. Just resources on our program. I'll put in the link. I'm sorry, I can't find the chat right now because I'm sharing my screen, but I'll put the link into our website that will give you everything you need to apply for our program. We have tutorials, we have workshop recordings that we've done last year, solicitation link that you can click on that will take you to grants portal where you can create your account. One thing that I will stress is the procedural guide. We have spent a lot of time in putting together our procedural guide to, it's a step-by-step guide to help you put in your applications. Very, very well thought out. So if you go to our website, open up our procedural guide, it will tell you step-by-step of what to do and how to create your account on eCivis, which is grants portal, and what to do in putting your application for our grants program. So my portion is really, really small. I just like to keep it very high level overview. We work with our southern region and also our northern region. So depending on where your agency is, you will either work with the southern region or northern region that can give you more information, more details on your application, on what to do and how to do it. But this is wpgrants@fire.ca.gov is our general email box. And then we have our cnrgrants@fire.ca.gov, which is our northern region. And then southern region grants is our southern region group. That is all that I have prepared for today. And then, of course, I will hang back for any questions that you all may have.
My name is Bob Stiens. I am a senior advisor at Southern California Edison. I, for the last, about 5 years now, have been doing pretty much wildfire full time, including engaging with our local and tribal government partners and a little bit of special districts, but all of our local and tribal governments, concentrating on our public safety power shutoff and our wildfire mitigation plan. And I am also, during a PSPS activation, I am staffing the liaison officer at our emergency operations center. So if we can go ahead, next slide, Ashley. So wildfire season, it's kind of ironic talking about wildfire season with the current weather storm, but as we've all known in the more and more wildfires, more and more large, very destructive fires. 6 of the 7 largest wildfires in California have happened in the last 12 years. We were fortunate last year that we didn't have any big ones. And we hope that trend continues, but just given the climate change and everything else, it's not likely that trend will continue, but maybe it will plateau a little bit. I'm hearing, and one of the questions I'm asked about, all this rain, it's good news now, but the bad part is it grows, more vegetation to grow later in the year. So hopefully, we're hearing potential reports of more of a return to an El Nino type situation in the fall. So hopefully that does happen. Go to the next slide, please. Sorry. So I apologize, this eye chart here, but this is a summary of all of the wildfire risk activities that we're doing. We call it grid hardening, or activities to reduce wildfire risk in our communities. And the goal of all of these activities is to reduce the chance of our system, Edison's electrical system, becoming the ignition source for a wildfire. So I'm not going to go through all of these, but I'll highlight some of the key ones. Our situational awareness that we've deployed over the last 4 or 5 years. And I've got, you'll actually be able to access some of that situational awareness on a website that I'll show you. Edison has the largest privately owned weather network I believe in the country now. We have over 1,600 weather stations throughout our service territory. And those are really important because what those give us the ability to do is observe and understand what the weather conditions are at a very micro level. So instead of relying on a weather station to say weather in the Acton Agua Dulce area is this, we have probably about 20 weather stations up in that area. And that's very helpful when we get to public safety power shutoffs, which I'll talk about. Vegetation management is another key part of our strategy. We want to reduce the chances of vegetation from trees blowing into our lines. So we have a very aggressive program, and I realize that's not popular in some communities, but we want to keep vegetation back, I think, depending on the area, 12 feet from our lines, because it's very, very important. We're putting in a lot of technologies on what we call system hardening, different types of fuses, different types of switches. But two issues I want to talk about is our preferred method is what we call covered conductor. So we're replacing our standard bare metal wire in high fire risk areas with what we call covered conductor or insulated wire. It's got a polymer coat on the wire. So if that tree branch, if that palm frond blows 100 feet into our lines, instead of blowing into a bare metal line, it blows into these, into the covered conductor, and it greatly reduces the chance of fires. We'll hit the undergrounding issue. We are looking at expanding our undergrounding. We call it targeted undergrounding. We don't have a list of all the communities yet, but that is something we are going to be ramping up over the next few years. But covered conductor is still our preferred method, primarily because of the cost to our ratepayers. It's about $400,000 to do $600,000 to do a mile to do covered conductor, and depending on the terrain, undergrounding can be up to 10 times to that. Next slide, please. So again, this is a summary of what we're doing, what we've been doing. We've seen a dramatic reduction in Edison's lines being a ignition source over the past few years. So 65 to 70% reduction. And again, we've talked about we're going through reducing our using this covered conductor is a very effective way. And then one other thing I wanted to talk about was aerial suppression, that we've contributed $18 million to a aerial suppression effort so that we have fire helicopters based in Ventura County, Los Angeles County, and San Bernardino County. So we go to the next slide, please. I won't go through this in detail, but again, this is numbers as of the end of 2022. We've replaced, and these numbers will be announcing the higher numbers soon. In fact, let me look at some notes here to get an update. We've actually now completed, we've completed over 4,000 miles of covered conductor this year, continuing to do segmentation, weather station, switching protocols, which are very important. Those allow us to, when we do a public safety power shutoff, de-energize instead of the whole circuit, the ability to de-energize at only partial circuits. Let's go next slide, please. So public safety power shutoffs. This is our tool of last resort. So we try and do between the grid hardening, between switching, and other offers when the conditions are dry and windy, is when we'll look at doing a public safety power shutoff. And the reason for that is we don't want our lines to become an ignition source. We realize the inconvenience it has on our customers. We have a number of programs that we have implemented for our customers, and especially for our more vulnerable customers. And we use we have a very detailed notification process. That's something I help manage. And we notify our first group of customers that get notified, or folks that are on this call, what we call our public safety partners. So that's cities, counties, critical infrastructure providers, They receive the first notification, and then we begin a cascade to notify all of our customers during a PSPS. So we've implemented some new tools over the past year to help our customers have a better understanding of the situational awareness of potential public safety power shutoffs. So the first one is we've redone what we call our outage map, and I'm having to look at that right now to see the store. But prior to this, we had a couple of different maps you had to go to depending on the outage. If it was what we call a repair outage, you had to look at one map. If you wanted a maintenance outage, you had to do another map. In a public safety power shutoff, another map. Those are all now consolidated into a single map. We'll also show rotating outages. You can see maintenance outages. So if there's going to be a maintenance outage in your area, you can identify that there. If there is an actual outage, you can type in your address and find out exactly what's going on, along with an estimated restoration time. And then during a public safety power shutoff, it'll just list what we call our community resource centers or our community crew vehicles. And those are resources we deploy to help our customers during a PSPS event. Next slide, please. This is another new tool we rolled out, I think it's late 2021. So this is a forecast, a 5-day forecast of potential public safety power shutoffs. And it's done by county. So you can be monitoring this, when we might be later in the year, when we might be seeing some dry and windy conditions. It provides a 7-day outlook for public safety power shutoffs. Green is normal. Yellow is when we are looking at a potential public safety power shutoff. It's not there yet. And red is warning. So those are, similar to, the hurricane watch or hurricane warnings. A watch doesn't mean we're doing it, and even a warning does not mean we're actually going to do public safety power shutoffs. But these are a good tool for you to help prepare when we're getting into these weather conditions, dry and windy weather conditions. Next slide, please. This is another new tool that we developed. Again, our goal is to put as much information as we can in the hands of our customers to help them plan and prepare for emergencies. I know that's one of the main themes of this conference. So this map here is shows our weather station. So it has live weather data. It has the links to HD fire cameras. Edison, starting about 5 years ago, started participating in a program called Alert Wildfire. And what that program has cameras throughout the state. Edison has funded a number of those cameras. I think we are at about 160 cameras. And what those are designed for is for the fire departments to be able to observe a fire when a fire is going on, when a fire first spotted, and it helps them identify where the fire is and the direction. Anybody can go in and look at those cameras, but for first responders, fire departments are allowed to actually go in and control those cameras. And it will also show wind warnings and fire warnings as well. Next slide, please. Another tool we developed is what we call our Public Safety Partner Portal. And I have to go real slow. That is a tongue twister for me because usually when I start public safety, it's power shutoff. But this is a tool for our local government and governmental agencies and what we call critical infrastructure providers, which is probably most of the people that are on this call today. If your agency is in a high fire risk area, we have this map, this Public Safety Partner Portal available for you. And you can, what it does is real-time PSPS information. So real-time maps of what area is going to be impacted for our local and tribal governments. And for emergency responders, we also provide a list of what we call our medical baseline customers. So those are customers that are on some type of a life-saving device. that they need, so we can get lists so that local cities and counties and tribes can get lists of that. And we are looking at later this year expanding that into an all hazards portal. And I will, if you're interested, after I get done talking, I will drop in the chat the email address if you're interested. But again, in getting access to this, again, I want to stress it's only for critical local tribal governments and critical infrastructure providers, or who has allowed to have access to this. Next slide, please. I think that might be it. Just some basic information. Again, we really encourage everyone to sign up for notifications. What I call it sort of our mothership of the websites is sce.com/wildfire. So that has all the information you would need on wildfire issues. It has links to the rebates, links to all those maps that I showed, and all that information. So I think that is my last slide, or there may be one more with just the websites. So with that, I am done, and Frank, happy to turn it back over to you and take questions.
Thank you very much, Bob. It's all three presentations. Thank you very much. Great information there. One of the questions that I see here is that it sounds like the urban forestry grant program may be cut in the upcoming budget. Is that accurate? If so, is there a need for advocacy, and how do we do it?
I don't know if that's directed to CAL FIRE. So we only focus on wildfire prevention grants. So the forestry grants, that's with the forestry division.
Okay.
I'll put the contact info in for that.
That'll be great. I actually do not see any other questions there. Well, I want to thank you all for coming and certainly sharing this information, which is extremely valuable for our participants. And again, thank you all.